She was going to see the King. On a cold fall day in the Gallagher Blue Dorm Performing Arts Center, she was going to see the King. My father was treating my great Aunt Sharon to an Elvis Presley tribute artist. They prefer the name tribute artist rather than impersonator nowadays. She was probably the biggest Elvis fan that I've ever known, and she got to see the King only once before from the back row of the Veterans Memorial Auditorium in Des Moines on a Thursday in 1974. She was so eager to relive the sensation of being in the same room with the King of rock and roll, so excited to feel the electricity as he walked out on stage, to see the sequin ornaments twinkling on his white jumpsuit, to swoon as he shook his hips and flung his sweat-soaked rag into the audience. The Elvis tribute artist did quite well, and she was satisfied. But my father, after the show, invited her, "Hey, why don't we go back and meet him in person?" She was going to see the King up close. After a long time, it was finally their turn to greet the performer, and she was horrified at what she saw. He had mountains of caked-on foundation and makeup that made his face almost unrecognizable from a human. His white suit was dirty and sweat-soaked, and his massive platform shoes gave away just how short he was in real life. And he was cold and distant and quickly focused on the next person in line. This was her King. She risked getting up close to him to see him and meet him, and it was not what she expected, it was not what she wanted, and it was not what she anticipated. "I wish we'd never come back here," she told my dad. Today we celebrate the feast of our King, Jesus Christ, the King of the universe. We're reminded that Jesus of Nazareth was not just a nice guy or a prophet or just a good philosopher, but he was a suffering, holy, human king. He deserves every bit of adoration and praise that we give him because he came down from his lofty throne, his God-like status, plunged all the way down to be on our level, to experience joy, love, peace, and pain and suffering with us. It meant serving us and being with us. So this Elvis story about my great Aunt Sharon is like every other king we are with. Every other king we choose to worship, whether it's I know in my life there's been kings, relationships, or there could be musicians, politicians, sports teams, or ideals even. Whatever king we worship, when we draw close to that king, we see that it's not really what we wanted, and it's not what will satisfy us. We see the flaws and we see the imperfections. But Jesus breaks the mold of all those other kings, because when we draw close to him, we find not what we expect, but exactly what we need. Imagine the thief on the cross right next to him, who is dying with him today. Jesus' bruised and battered face would make him almost completely unrecognizable from a human face. The blood and sweat of the previous 24 hours would smell awful. His mangled and tortured body is not the kind that a strong Savior should have. And he's barely able to get a full sentence out between his dying, gasping breaths. And yet, this is our King. We risk getting close to that shiny, pretty, white-robed Jesus that we know from paintings or Sunday school. And when we risk getting up close to him, we see that he is not what we expect. He's quite the opposite, actually. We see someone broken, we see someone suffering, but we see love itself in his face. All crucifixes are usually pretty, but the cross and the death of Jesus is not pretty, but it is beautiful. It's a picture of suffering, a picture of Roman execution, but it's a picture of love and sacrifice conquering all. When we draw close to our King, and he draws close to us, we don't find someone who makes us bow down or who wishes to take something from us. We find the God of the universe bending down to serve and be with us. Jesus draws close to us every time we come to Mass and receive the Eucharist. Jesus draws close to us every time we feel joy or celebration or any type of pain or rejection or betrayal that we experience, even when we physically get sick with a cold. All suffering and all joy, Jesus draws near to us because he himself experienced it while on earth. So as we close out this year, day in, day out, year in, year out, we keep in mind that Jesus is the King not only of Israel, not only of the universe, but King of our hearts as well. Let's continue to draw close to him, keep each other in prayer, draw close to him who can be found on this altar, in each other, and in our own hearts. Long live the King.